Hello everybody, Anna Sabramowitz here, and today we are talking about the choice mechanic, the cause and effect mechanic. And we're going to talk about this today because this is a series that I'm running on how to craft your own interactive story. And also, the reason I'm bringing it up is because it is something that is most misunderstood and misused in scenarios and interactive design. So today is a perfect day to talk about it. All right, before I get started, if you are visiting, please say hello in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Now, all of these series that I'm running for the past 2 weeks have been about interactive stories. And so if you're unfamiliar with what an interactive story is, let me just give you a quick recap here. I don't have much time today because we've got meetings all the way. But basically, what an interactive story is a way to get somebody engaged and excited about the learning journey. So if you have a learning management system or some sort of a resource that you want to drive people to, the interactive story is there to help somebody move from a place of complete unawareness and being not even able to see that they have some gaps, to then through learning through the journey of a character, they actually are able to move towards a place where they're like, hey, look at that. I didn't think I could do this. Let's, is there any resources I could do to help me get where this character was, make this journey as well, step out of my comfort zone and actually check out some of those awesome resources out there? That's the point, all right? So that's what an interactive story is. And over the past 2 weeks, I've been going over the mechanics of really what goes in the middle here, right? Because a great story, traditionally, really at its basis, has a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? But what we're doing is we're combining two powerful elements, the power of storytelling and the power of agency, which is giving people the ability to make decisions and drive this story forward. Hello, Martin, and hello, Bernie. Okay, so let me just now go through this diagram for you because it's quite important. Now, what a lot of people do, and people send me their interactive story portfolios and they'll send me their versions of what they think is a good scenario, and I see people make this mistake a lot. Now, they're not to blame. We weren't actually taught storytelling and cause and effect relationships in instructional design. It's not even mentioned anywhere. That's not what we're taught, right? We're taught adult learning theory principles and then all kinds of research on how people learn. But really what's really forgotten is the fact that we learn from cause and effect. So, in its essence, and you can see that, how do we learn? We do something and something happens. And as a result of that something happening, we're like, was that a good outcome or a bad outcome? And that's the essence of learning. And everything in our lives is cause and effect. Now, sometimes what happens, unfortunately, for us, is we either misunderstand what happens as far as the consequence. It's too far removed from us and we don't get the deal. Like, we don't understand that, if we eat a pint of ice cream every single day and in 2 years we're 40 pounds overweight, we're like, sometimes some of us don't make that connection. Some of us are like, oh, it's because I'm fluffy, whatever. The effect is removed from us, right? So one of the things that your interactive story is supposed to do, because that's how storytelling works, is you're supposed to make the connection between the decision that somebody makes and the consequence, the effect, right? Very explicit, very, very explicit. And it's actually a really great exercise for you and the practitioners that you're working with, the subject matter experts, because if you make a decision and there really is no consequence to it, then you probably shouldn't be including it in your interactive experience, because our goal is to give people the opportunity to make decisions that drive the story forward. And also, one of the things you're trying to teach them is that the decisions that they're making on behalf of the character in your interactive story have an effect. Whether it's positive, negative, or neutral, they have an effect. There's something that's going to happen as a result. And yes, sometimes you see things that, in the real world, There will be things that are like, oh, it's not really affecting me. It's a neutral kind of thing. It's like, if I do it, it's not a bad thing. If I don't do it, it's not a bad thing. But in an interactive story, your goal, what's your goal? Your goal is to persuade. Your goal is to have people come away with an aha. And you can do that in a lukewarm way, right? Your interactive story is supposed to be kind of like the 10x version of reality. You're supposed to amp it up. If you forget to latch something, then the end result is supposed to be maybe like what the worst case scenario. And why I say this is because, when you're thinking about online, people are distracted by a bazillion things, right? And also, they're behind a computer screen, right? So you don't know how they're feeling that day. And what you're trying to do is kind of shake them out of their unawareness and say, hey, pay up, pay attention. This is important. This is very important. Look, if you don't make this, if you don't latch this little thing, somebody could actually die because something might open on them in 6 months because you didn't latch it properly and smash their head or something like that. So your goal there is not only to make this cause and effect relationship extremely clear, right? But also you're trying to amp it up as much as possible. Now, where people make most of the mistakes is they'll set up a solid scenario. Everything's great, right? They'll go through something like, let me just bring up a typical string of pearls, right? So let me bring this up for you. So we've got a typical string of pearls. This is basically the pieces that make up basically a base of a scenario. You've got a scenario that leads to a decisive moment, then you have a choice, and then you have a consequence. Now, a lot of people do this part right. They go all the way to the choice, they get it right, but the consequences, they rob the learner of the actual learning experience by making the consequence feedback. So the consequence is never feedback, ever. The consequence is what happens if I choose this, and it is never right. If I burn myself or if I spill coffee, the consequence is never, you did that wrong. Some weird voice from the ceiling comes out and says, you did that wrong, or that wasn't the right approach. No. I burn myself. That's the concept, right? So here I want to see what happens, not how, and not all the rationalizations of why I shouldn't have chosen this one. It's what actually happens as a result of me choosing this. And what's really cool is that sometimes, what happens is 6 months later. So 6 months later, I see the effect, right? A customer asks me for something and I don't handle it right away and I kind of blow it off. Well, 6 months later, maybe I have less customers because that person told everybody else that I didn't help them when they needed help, right? Right? So what's awesome is your consequences. Think about the worst case scenario, and also what, even if it takes time for that thing to manifest, that's what's fantastic about these sequences, is you can make it so very explicit and powerful so that basically you can help people achieve the ahas without them having to struggle through this lesson or lack of it in the real world, right? That's what you're trying to do. You're just trying to make their lives easier by helping them suffer here and making this as terrible as you can, realistically contextual, right? But you're helping them make these errors here and suffer the consequences here rather than in the real world. And sometimes when we work with, with other people and we amp these up, they're like, oh, that's too harsh. And I'm like, no. It's not too harsh. This is the place where we should be harsh, because the real world is way worse, right? So we're trying to amp it up here so that they get the lesson here, so that when they get into the real world, it's actually, probably it's not going to be as horrible, but they remembered that lesson because it's actually impactful and it means something, right? So that's why I really wanted to stress the cause and effect, because a lot of people jump straight to feedback, straight to the how, like how we did this and how this worked out. No. Hit me right off with what actually happens as a result. And what's also very powerful here is when we talk about the fact that all of these decisions are a part of an interactive story. Hold on, let me get that there we go. because all of these decisions are part of an interactive story, and if each one of these decisions, the cause and effect, leads to the next thing, it pulls me in as a learner, because then what happens is we begin each of these interactions with the assumption that nobody cares about our story, nobody wants to have an aha moment, we're interrupting their day, they're finding this a waste of time, right? So how can we engage them, not only in the beginning with a great character, but also when they're making these decisions, they feel like they're moving that action forward because the things that are happening actually mean something, and they're very powerful, and they're juicy, and they're exciting because there's real things happening and they're driving this forward. And that kind of autonomy is intoxicating, right? That's what we want to do. We want to get them into this basically trance, almost saying, I can't wait to be this character, and then help them make all these decisions. So these have to be powerful. The consequences have to be powerful and meaningful, so that they want to get to the end and have that revelation that you're trying to get them to. Okay? So it's kind of cool, because I get people to, in our interactive community, this is of people who are actually crafting their own interactive stories. Now, if you want to craft your own interactive story, watching these videos will help you, of course, right? This is why I'm doing this, because not everybody can afford to work with me and be in our community. But one of the cool things is when you're in the interactive community, when you're sharing your project, and we do this, we iterate. We're really all about iteration. One of the things that you get really good at is quickly spotting where things are either not emotionally connecting to you, or where the flow doesn't go, because one of the things that we're trying to do is as much as possible emulate the kind of work that Pixar is doing, right? We're following proven formulas, we're borrowing proven frameworks, right? And we're just meshing that stuff that's used for engaging people and engrossing them just for entertainment purposes to actually create experiences that move people to action, which is so exciting, right? Like if that's the kind of work that you want to do. I mean, a lot of people in our community, they're either, they're doing things that are either for their own portfolio because they want to share the kinds of work that they want to do with their clients, right? But a lot of them have already had years of experience designing e-learning. And they're master craftsmen, some of them, not all of them. Some of them are just, getting started, but they're master craftsmen. And they'll look at something, they're like, okay, mechanically, I can make that happen. But on the back end, as far as crafting a story and making sure my scenarios there's a good pace, there's a good beat, that storytelling Pixar aspect of it, they've never done that before. So now what they're able to do is, with the help of the coaching that me and my partner Ryan and the rest of the community provides, they're able to refine a different skill set now. So it's not just the mechanics. Like, I can show you the mechanics and you can just, put together the slides. But just as, you could put together pages in a book, you have to refine that storytelling aspect, because that's what draws people in. It's like, my example is, how many times have you gone to the movies? The movie's not that great, or even at home you're watching this movie and it's not that great, but you end up finishing it anyways because they use the right formula to hook you in, and baby, you got to see the end because you want to know how it finishes, how it works out for that character. Now imagine if you can do that, and you can, through your learning experiences. That's the power, right? That's so exciting, because the goal is to have somebody come through your interactive story and at the end walk out as a person who is looking for more resources because they've been made aware of their gaps, or they now see that there's a potential, there's a future that they haven't seen before. And in fact, all of the stories that we're working on, and that's really, I think, the coolest part of our community, is you are working on a story that is helping solve a real problem in the world. It's not, you're helping people's lives be better. And what is better than that? You're not just doing entertainment, you're doing that. So if that sounds like somebody like you who's willing actually to put in the time, who's willing to invest their resources in themselves, this is for you, and you want to take yourself to the next level with, not just crafting pretty things, but actually crafting things that, yes, are absolutely beautiful, but also are achieving the kind of deeper impact that you want to have on the world, then I'd love to talk to you. So I'll put a link underneath this video so you guys can book a strategies chat with me. And during the chat, we'll just talk about where you are. I can figure out, if I can help you. If I can help you, I'll let you know. If I can't, I'll let you know that too. All right, so make sure you fill in the questions so that I can get some context about where you're coming from and what are you specifically wanting to basically improve on. And that's something that I'll review and let you know if I can help you. Because the goal is a win-win, right? I can help you be successful. You're already at the spot where we can take you to the next level. And then if you're successful, then I'm successful. And that's how it works. And we have more opportunities to share in our community projects that are absolutely rocking. All right. So I hope you found this useful. I got to go because I've got a strategy session coming up, but I hope you have a fabulous rest of the day and I hope this was helpful to you. And if you were able to stick around, that's awesome. Also, if you like this video, make sure you like it. And that way what will happen is next time I'm going live, you'll get a notification and it'll be pushed up to the top so you get to see it first. All right. So thank you so much for being here, friends, and I'll talk to you next time. All right. Take care.